We are live.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Maggie Ullman, and I'm the chair of our Environment and Safety Committee here at the City of Asheville, and I'd like to welcome you to our April 23rd, 2024 meeting. All of our committee members and staff are participating virtually. To help our audience follow along, I'll state each section agenda aloud and I'll mark it as we go. We are streaming on our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link, which we right on the front page of our city website. We also have an option for the public to listen live by phone by calling 855-925-2801, and the meeting code is 9477. For those of you out there, welcome. And for today's meeting, we also have the option for folks to call in and comment live during the meeting. So if you would like to do that, use that same number, 855-925-2801, meeting code 9477. Your phone will be muted. You'll hear the meeting live. At this point, speakers need to push *3 to enter the speaker queue. Now I will do a roll call before we jump into our agenda. Welcome, everybody. And if you could come off mute, say hello, quick hello, that would be lovely. So starting off, our Vice Mayor, Sandra Kilgore.
Good morning, everyone.
And Councilwoman Shanika Smith.
Good morning.
Our City Manager, Deborah Campbell.
Good morning.
And our Deputy City Attorney, John Maddox.
Good morning, everybody.
We also have our Police Department Chief, Mike Lamb.
Good morning.
One of our captains, Captain Ardema.
Hello.
And also our Financial Business Manager from the Police Department, Elise Lewis.
Morning, everyone.
We also have our Assistant Fire Chief, Jeremy Knighton.
Good morning.
And we also have a guest for one of the agenda items you'll see in a minute from my alma mater, UNC Asheville, the Police Chief, Darren Dodd. Welcome.
Morning.
So thanks, everybody. And let's go ahead and get started on our agenda. As is kind of custom process, we kick off and we close these meetings with a public comment. So Katie, do we have anyone in the queue to get us started for today?
Yes, we do. Just one moment.
Thank you.
Caller ending in 5584. Your line is now open.
Great. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. I am calling as a representative from the Asheville Coalition for Public Safety to say thank you to our leaders for honoring our police department this week. I look forward to attending the proclamation this afternoon. I know that you all have a very long day ahead of you. I just kind of want to reiterate that the coalition and many other groups in town, including the Chamber of Commerce, are supporting a 6% increase this year in the budgetary cycle for the APD. And it's extremely important that you all consider bumping it up just slightly higher than the suggested 4.11% across the board increase to the entire city staff. The reasoning really is that this is a much harder job to hire up than other city staff positions, and of course an extremely dangerous job and a very needed staffing that is still continuing to be at much lower levels than we should be as a city. The UNCA is offering more for their police entry level, and they're offering free degrees. Other nearby cities that are smaller than us, that actually don't have nearly as big of a tax footprint as we do, are offering more to their entry-level police. So I hate to keep pushing on this point, but I don't think Asheville is going quickly enough or aggressively enough in trying to get the staff hired back. One final point is that the coalition does support the bid, but we support it in conjunction with trying to get those salaries just a little higher for the sworn officers. And the sworn officers, of course, are those who are in the line of fire and have the most dangerous positions at the Asheville Police Department. Thanks for listening, guys. I know you have a long day ahead. Thanks.
Thank you. Katie, do any other callers?
Madam Chair, no, we do not.
Okay.
You're muted.
Thank you. Item number 2 on the agenda is approval of our minutes for March 26th. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Sandra, I'll second.
Great. As is process, I'll take a roll call vote. Vice Mayor Kilgore.
Aye.
Councilwoman Smith.
Aye.
And myself, aye. The motion passes. Minutes are approved. Fantastic. Now we will go on to item number 3. For the last year or so, we've been doing quarterly updates. And so item 3 is a quarterly update from our police department.
All right, again, good morning, everyone. Just going to cover real quickly some crime statistics in this update. Next slide, please. Chief Lamb's talked since he basically was made interim chief and then the full chief, talking about how our strategies are predominantly data-driven. It informs our proactive policing efforts and our community engagement efforts. And both of those things in conjunction have contributed to an overall reduction in violent and property crime citywide. You'll see violent crime has decreased 9% compared to the same quarter in 2023. Property crime decreased 6% during the same time period. As for staffing, the last bullet point, 175 sworn positions were filled, which places the agency at a 27.4% vacancy rate. Next slide, please. A little more deep dive into the violent crime statistics. You can see 2022 obviously was kind of a record year. 2023 still above average as compared to the years prior. 2024, we are continuing on that downward trend. It has definitely increased over last year and increased significantly or decreased significantly since 2022. Again, it's the data-driven proactive policing as well as the community engagement on the part of patrol staff and our community engagement officers. Next slide, please. When you look at violent crime citywide during the first quarter of 2024, this is broken down to our geographical patrol beats, for lack of a better term. Charlie District, which is primarily downtown in the Southside community, 2 fewer violent crimes compared to the same quarter last year. Our Baker District, which is North and East Asheville, 6 fewer crimes. West Asheville is 4 fewer crimes. And perhaps most significantly is the South District, which is roughly Biltmore Village, south of the city limits, saw 8 fewer violent crimes compared to the same quarter last year. Next slide, please. When we're talking about property crime, pretty significant trend downward. This is kind of different than violent crime. This property crime was much higher back in 2019, and it's continued on a downward trend ever since then. So it's continuing to decline. Even now, we're starting into the second quarter. We're still seeing that reduction. But predominantly, the drivers of the majority of our property crime are West Asheville and downtown Asheville. And our data-driven efforts there, again, have really driven the reduction in those rates. Next slide, please. Again, this is broken down by beat. The only real change is Baker 4, which is, you can see on the map there, it kind of get a little bit hard to read. But Baker 4 is the far east. It's gone up, but everyone else has had fewer. So downtown went down by 6. Most significantly, you'll see in West Asheville, there were 51 fewer property crimes compared to Q1 of last year. Our district personnel out there have really taken a deep dive into what the data shows where the crime's occurring there, and have focused a lot of proactive efforts in specific areas in West Asheville, which has seen or driven that reduction. Next slide, please. Again, just a further breakdown of staffing, 63 vacancies, which is 27.4% down. When you talk about solo sworn, I know we've talked about this before. That is a full duty police officer that's not in any sort of field training or academy training. That number is 31.9% down. Available sworn, that factors in people that are injured, are out on leave for one reason or another, could be parental leave. So when you factor those counts in, it's at 39%. Next slide, please.
Can I jump in with a question here?
Yes.
We go back to that slide. So I feel like when we were having conversations, we've been having conversations about this for quite some time. In the past, the data that was shared, I feel like the only data that we were getting was this third bullet of available sworn, which the famous number out in the press was 40%. And so when we're looking at this number now of 27, we're seeing a bit of a fuller picture here, and that the previous data that we've been seeing around available sworn is down from where it had been a year before at 40%, but only by 1%. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Yes, you are. You are. That's so the available sworn is an important number because that is who is offering services for the to the city of Asheville for on any given day. And so, but I thought it was important that we are completely transparent and show what our full vacancy count is, but then also look at our solo sworn compared to our who's in training and who's available, and then the total available sworn, because again, that is who is offering services throughout the city. And while I'm very thankful that we have made gains, especially with our lateral transfers, we've had, I think we're almost up to 9 lateral transfers. We have 2 more officers that are coming in that are finishing the final stages. And that's work. I mean, from 2017 to May of 2023, we only had 2 lateral transfers, and now we've had almost 9 within less than a year. So we're very, very thankful for that. But, when you look at overall vacancies across the whole city, our number is drastically higher in vacancies compared to any other city department. So, there's so many things that I would love for us to be able to do. Downtown specialty unit, downtown bike and foot patrol unit, bring back our traffic safety unit, bring back our public housing liaison unit. And there's a lot of other innovative things we would love to do if we can fill those vacancies.
Thank you.
Again, just to recap, our data-driven strategies, proactive policing, and community engagement on the part of our patrol staff and community engagement contributed to reduction in both violent property crime. Violent crime 9% down, property crime 6% down, and again, just spoke about it. Sworn positions 175 out of 238, which places us at 27.4%. Next slide, please. And that is the conclusion of that presentation. Other questions?
Vice Mayor?
Yes, okay. Yes, thank you very much for that presentation. It's good to have this come in, every so often so we can sort of have a grip on things. But the one thing that I noticed, and I'm just wondering, you were talking about the decline in the crimes overall, how they're actually getting better. And for me, I'm just sort of thinking would you say that would possibly be an impact of the homelessness strategies and the partnerships that the city is actually getting our hands around. We're finally, moving in the right direction, identifying the cause rather than the symptoms with homelessness. So would you sort of say that that's sort of part of responsible for the big impact in that?
Yeah, it's a good possibility. I mean, crime stats are so complex because there are so many societal factors, so many outside factors that go into what drive our crime stats. And I think that is one component of it. But, post-pandemic, we have a lot of other services that are coming online also as far as addiction recovery, because we see addiction and crime go hand in hand. And I would say that's probably more of a better indicator of the reduction in property crime and also violent crime is a lot of those addiction recovery and addiction support services, because we see, addiction and crime just so intertwined within the city. But I would say also some of the changes within the court system with the passing of the Pretrial Integrity Act. I think that has helped us out tremendously, especially with repeat offender. Because with what the data has shown us over the years is that a small number of people commit a disproportionate amount of crime. When those folks are not able to commit those crimes, it does make a difference. And also the word gets out as far as there being consequences to certain crimes and certain behaviors, especially if you're a repeat offender.
So in other words, that being said, what would you say is the percentage of those repeat offenders that we did notice that were really high? What would you say the percentage of that you've actually been able to maybe reduce at this time?
Oh gosh, that's hard to say right now without doing a little bit of a deeper dive into the data.
Okay.
I think that is definitely contributing to the reduction. And law enforcement services, it's generally what we like to focus on is crime prevention. So being able to be in the areas where crime occurs and have officers being able to show a good presence there to take away that opportunity to commit the crime. But then the other side of that is making sure that we're going after the offenders that are being really dangerous in the community and that are repeatedly committing both violent and property crime.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Could you say more about the Pretrial Integrity Act?
Yes, so that was passed back in October, and what that does is it takes away the option of giving a bond from the magistrates, and then they're held until they can see a district court judge. And then the district court judge is the one who actually sets the bond within those cases. And again, that's for repeat offenders, not somebody who's been arrested for the first time or doesn't have much of a record. It's for the folks that are out there committing repeat offenses in the community.
So it overturns the pretrial release.
In terms of pretrial release, and then also with the initial bond hearings for those repeat offenders.
Okay, got it.
I think what we are hearing from the police is an affirmation of that public safety is a community issue, and it's going to take all of us collaborating to address some of the social, economic, and just habitual behavior of some in our community. And I can't say enough about the proactive work that is going on with APD in terms of what they're trying to do through their community engagement division and just discussions with individual property owners about them taking individual responsibility about how to make their property safe. So there are a lot of cylinders firing right now, and luckily they're all complementing one another in terms of trying to make our community safer. Yes, there's a tremendous amount of work that we need to do. We need to attract more police officers. But again, we approach public safety as a team effort, and it's going to take the entire community, as well as our park and rec staff, as well as our public works staff, as well as our fire department. It's a collaborative effort. Thanks.
Couldn't agree more. I appreciate that voice of leadership, Deborah, that you continue to offer throughout the entire organization on that. I think it's really the impacts of that leadership are being seen, and I agree with it a lot. I have two other inquiries that aren't have a fine point on it. It's more I'd be curious to see data on the next quarterly report around two different areas, but I'm not sure what the data point is. So it might be more of is there a way you can help us gain some insight into these areas and let me know what data metrics make the most sense? One is around traffic responses. And we know that there's now legislation that we can look towards having non-sworn officers support traffic stuff. And that the enabling legislation says that there has to be, those folks would have through a training process, and the state is setting that up. So we're kind of waiting to hear from the state on when that will be allowed. And we know that that type of solution, it would be a shorter training window for non-sworn officers. So it could be really helpful. And I'm hoping and under the assumption that it is a burden, right? Or that there's a lot of time and effort going into that, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we just don't do much of that. And so if we could just get an insight into how much of our effort is focusing on speeding and things of that nature. And again, I'm not sure what the data points are, but I'm under an assumption shifting over time does programming like this would be beneficial, but just curious of what some of the starting data looks like. And I don't know how long it takes to gather that, but that's a curiosity I'd love to explore at some point. The other area is coming from a different place of I know that we've been exploring using technology in a way that, oh yeah, correct, Captain.
We can actually answer your question for you, at least for 2023.
Great.
2023, 11% of our complete time spent on calls for service generated from the public were for traffic collisions.
Wow.
Yeah, it's when you talk about, we had well over 120,000 calls for service in 2023, 11% is a huge number. So when you talk about time spent versus calls for service, they only cost like 6% of the total calls for service, but they occupy over 10% of our time. Now, keep in mind that includes collisions that could involve injury or some other criminal act that a civilian investigator would not be authorized to investigate. But still, it would likely be a very significant amount of time.
I was not expecting that data at your fingertips, but it's very impressive. I love that. It's nice. It really reaffirms what we keep hearing from you, Chief, of like, we're a data-driven organization, and that does help. So that hunch, the reason we're growing in this direction is because it really does have this, it could have a really substantial play. And again, I know that we're awaiting further direction from the state, but this is just an echo of we're really enthusiastic of what could it look like. That's fantastic. So curiosity on my second one, and I don't know if we'll have this information, is we have been exploring technology in a way that's different, right? Policing 50 years ago was all human labor. And as we continue to struggle with the industry to refill seats, where can technology give us an advantage? So we've been looking at partnering with the county with the FUSIS and with drones. I had a really cool tour that you gave me where we really got to look at the drone technology, and I appreciated that. I'm curious, what are kind of the industry standards for us to have data looks over time at how we're using drones, what type of crimes they're helping solve? My understanding is a lot of it is to get access to have quick response and good data trying to solve crimes. But I'd be curious to understand what the metrics that you're using or seeing are, and for us to have a little look into that so that every so often we can check in and say, okay, we're using the technology, what's the data we're using to track this as we explore this further in our community. So I'm curious about that. I also don't want it to become some research project, but I know that y'all are data driven, so would love to think about that at some point too.
Yeah, definitely. With technology and law enforcement, especially in regards to drones, the FUSES program, the different technology that's out there, we're always looking to make sure that we're staying within the best practices of those technologies. But it's, I think most importantly, it helps us to be more precise, because there are, where a lot of times law enforcement officers can be placed in precarious situations, or when they don't have adequate information as far as the crime in progress, what's happening, specifically who's committing that crime, if they have a weapon, if they don't have a weapon. So having that real-time intelligence helps the officers to make precise decisions and accurate decisions. And so I think that is where it really is a great help for us, and a force multiplier, at least with crimes that are in progress. But then also, given that we have a limited visibility within the city, especially within downtown and other high crime areas, it's important that we have that tool to be able to go back and do investigations on crimes, especially when we have a description of a subject or a vehicle description or something like that. And that really helps us to increase our arrests and being able to close those cases by arrest, by accurately identifying who's involved in that.
Thanks.
And if I could add, and hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn, Chief, I've heard from our previous chief, Chief Zach, and from Brandon, that actually this technology, and specifically drone technology, actually helps us with recruitment as well, especially for younger officers that want to get that experience with that level of technology. So yeah, there's a crime prevention and a crime accuracy assessment with drones, but also a recruitment opportunity for us as well, because that will be the future for law enforcement.
Thank you so much for this update. Any other parting questions or thoughts? Okay. Again, thanks so much. All right, we will move on to our next agenda item.
I do have a question. I do have a
Oh,
question about the use of drone technology, because we've had this conversation before. And when we left the conversation the last time, it was my understanding that we didn't use drone technology on the preventative side of things, that it was more about having eyes on the scene of crimes in progress so that we can make educated and informed decisions on how to intervene. Am I hearing two different things on today? Are we actually surveilling ahead of a crime being committed?
No, you're correct, Councilwoman Smith. It is the flock surveillance systems do provide that opportunity to have surveillance, especially on open public areas where crimes can occur. However, the drone program is utilized for crimes in progress. But since the question from Councilwoman Ullman was combining both of those together, that's why that answer was that way. But no, the drones are separate. The drones are for in progress crimes that are occurring.
Got it. Thank you.
Expansion request by UNCA Police Department. Take it away.
We're going to talk about some work that we've done with the UNC Asheville Police Department regarding it's basically a specific property adjacent to their campus. So next slide, please. So they've made a request that their territorial jurisdiction be extended to properties adjacent to their campus that primarily serve as student housing. Their board of trustees have passed a resolution authorizing their request. And that expansion would reduce pressure on us, the APD, to respond for some calls for police service in that particular area. Next slide, please. So this request, it would be to expand the jurisdiction of their police department officers beyond their current campus borders, primarily allowing them to patrol and enforce North Carolina state law at apartment complexes close to campus that are occupied by students at UNCA. Under North Carolina state law, their board of trustees of any constituent institution of the University of North Carolina system may enter into a joint agreements with the governing board of any municipality to extend the authority of campus police officers into any or all of the municipality's jurisdiction and to determine the circumstances in which the authority is granted. Next slide, please. So predominantly what we're talking about here, and I'm glad Chief Dodd is in on the call, we're speaking of the Verge Apartments, which is kind of on the north side of the Montford community off Bulldog Drive around Zillicoa, kind of above State Employees Credit Union on Broadway Street, directly across the street from UNCA's main campus. Next slide, please. Continued partnership with the university, it just gives us an opportunity to give extended police services to the areas surrounding the university. They can also provide assistance to us outside of their regular jurisdictional boundaries. We do on occasion get calls up there for one reason or another. I mean, let's face it, we're talking about college student housing. Sometimes there's loud parties and things that go on with that. So it would definitely provide assistance to us there. The apartment complex specifically is primarily occupied by UNCA students, and the agreement would allow their police department to have or provide an added layer of security for their student population. Chief Dodd, I'll kind of turn it over to you if I missed anything or anything you'd like to add, sir.
Yeah, I think you've covered most everything. I just want to start off by thanking the committee for inviting me here today, and also to thank Chief Lamb, Captain Artema, and the rest of the police department for a tremendous partnership that we've had. When Chief Lamb and I discussed a rash of crimes and other things that were occurring at an adjacent property, one of the solutions was for us to assist by providing some opportunities for crime prevention strategies adjacent to our campus. And the key to this is the fact that we really don't want to put our officers in a spot where they go to an adjacent property and don't have a jurisdiction on that property if something were to happen in front of them. So that's really the key to this. I will say that I had similar, almost the same agreements with the city of Hendersonville and the Henderson County Sheriff's Office when I was in Henderson County.
Next slide, please. Again, the UNC Asheville Police Department has requested that their territorial jurisdiction be expanded to those properties adjacent to campus. Their board of trustees have passed a resolution authorizing that request, and it would reduce pressure on our agency to respond for some calls for police service in those areas. Next slide. And that is that.
Thank you, Captain. I do have a few questions. One is this turning over jurisdiction or sharing jurisdiction?
It is sharing jurisdiction. So this is mainly for call response and to allow, like Chief Dodd was saying, UNC Asheville police officers to basically patrol the area. And if something does occur in their presence, it allows them to have legal jurisdiction to take action. Any type of higher level criminal investigation, whether it be some sort of aggravated assault or robbery or something like that, the Asheville Police Department would still have primary jurisdiction over those cases.
And part of that is because just the function and size of our department, we have a detective unit, things of that nature. And Chief Todd, you're functionally mostly a patrol police department. Okay. I'd also be curious to know about just some of the like stats on this, of like how many apartments are there? This area, I was a UNCA student. This was here after I was a student, but what's the number of apartments? What's the number of residents? Also be curious to know like how many service calls are we talking about and what type of crimes are we seeing here? Just a little picture of the data. I feel like this policy ask is generally a win-win. It's that certain areas could get more support, but I also know that there's a variety of reception to law enforcement in different places. So I just want to be really thinking it through and understanding like what's the demand for service here, what type of crimes are committed, and how many residents or units is in consideration in that area.
Chief Dodd, I'm going to defer to you on that one.
Since it's in the city jurisdiction, I do not have statistics on that property. I know that Chief Lamb pulled some of those statistics when we were initially having a rash of calls in that area. I will say that we also have multiple properties that we own that are off of our main campus that our officers traverse through regularly throughout the day. So if they're on the way to another property to check that property for anything going on, if something were to happen in front of them, again, they do not have any jurisdiction on the travel to that property until they actually arrive on that property. So this would help us in that aspect as well, not just in the apartment complexes close to us. We also view it as a service to our students. If they're having an issue close to our campus and, given the staffing needs at Asheville Police Department, if they have staff that's not available to respond, we want to be able to do that and provide that service for our students.
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember what prompted the initial conversation was there was back in October, there was an incident where a man had a knife and was threatening some residents there in the Burge Apartments. And those residents happened to be students of UNCA. And so that prompted a lot of concern from the UNCA student body, but also, parents of those college students. So when we started looking at data, the biggest crime that we saw, or I guess the highest volume of crime, were cars that were broken into during the early morning hours. And especially with our staffing, we really struggled to provide a lot of crime prevention presence throughout the city during those late night, early morning hours. And so that's where UNCA officers have been able to help us tremendously by being able to provide that presence overnight and during the early morning, because usually overnight during that time is when we have big incidents, when we have, shootings, we have incidents that require a large APD response to one particular area. So having that ability to have the help from UNCA to be able to provide that extra crime prevention presence is very helpful for us as an agency.
That's cool. And a follow-up question, Chief Todd, how many folks are in your police force, and how many folks what number of officers would this bolster for service in that area? Like, how many folks do you think would be on call during those hours?
Our department has approximately 20 full-time sworn officers. We also have a full-time dispatch center. So we also have an emergency management director and other staff. So we have about 30 folks in our public safety unit. We're 24/7 full service police department. We do have a detective unit with 2 detectives. We also have a community engagement unit. So yeah, we're very active. We're like a mini Asheville Police Department.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I do have another question, but I feel like I'm taking up a lot of the air, so happy to pause if anyone else wants to chime in. Otherwise, I will jump in. So have you done any community engagement in the neighborhood that you could kind of speak to of demand for this from the residents and school population? Just elaborate any further on kind of some of that conversation.
So I can say we do a lot of community engagement on campus, being that we don't have authority off campus yet. We don't engage off campus. However, when we had the rash of break-ins and some of these other incidents, I can say that we had multiple students, multiple parents that contacted our student affairs division. We actually reached out to the apartment complex owners to find out some strategies that we could do to help. And that's what prompted this initial conversation with Chief Lamb.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Okay, what I would like to say, I really am appreciative to the proactive outreach of the UNCA police force, who basically, volunteering to expand their area to actually, I think that can only be a win-win and help for the city of Asheville. And I really appreciate that. And in light of a lot of the correlations of different crimes and what's happening at the school systems and things like that, I think, all of this is a need for the partnership to be very strong and be able to develop that communication level between them before anything like that occur. So I am grateful for this partnership, and I think it's a wonderful thing to be happening for the community. And if no one else have any questions, like a motion to put this forward to council.
All right, do we have a second?
Did you make a motion?
Yeah, yes.
Like,
Oh, second.
Okay.
And we apologize. We should have had a more formal motion for you all. So,
But I think that's, I think it's sort of self-explanatory there. But anyway, yeah. So Shanika, yes, I made a motion.
All right, second.
Okay.
all right, we have a motion and a second. I'll go for a roll call vote. Vice Mayor Kilgore,
Aye.
Councilwoman Smith,
Aye.
and myself, aye. The motion passes. Appreciate the leadership of jurisdictional collaboration. And staff will let us know when this moves forward to council for the full vote.
Thank you.
Yeah, take care. Thank you so much. And if you feel like listening, you are welcome to stay, but this is a very appropriate time for you to get to work for at UNC and hop off your choice. Okay. All right. Again, thanks for the proactiveness in that relationship. And we'll move on to item number 5 on our agenda, which is the 2025 Bike Safe Grant. Elise or whomever.
Yep, it's me. Thank you. Okay, first slide. The next one. Okay, so this is an easy one. This is an annual grant that we apply for. It's a $5,000 grant, and we're requesting that the committee recommend to council that staff accept this additional year of funding for the 2025 Bike Safe Motorcycle Safety Program. Next slide. So the Governor's Highway Safety Program the Bike Safe Program is a partnership with the Governor's Highway Safety Program and the North Carolina State Highway Patrol, and it's aimed at reducing motorcycle fatalities. Grant funds will be used to promote awareness by contacting motorcycle dealers, clubs, and associations to discuss current highway safety activities and attend and/or host training opportunities. The police department will act as the fiduciary for this program, and the total of the grant is $5,000 and does not require any local matching funds. Next slide. So our requested action is that this be recommended to council that staff accept an additional year of funding for the 2025 Bike Safe Motorcycle Safety Program grant for $5,000. Any questions?
No questions. So moved.
All right. Do we have a second?
Sandra, I'll second.
All right. Roll call vote. Vice Mayor Kilgore,
Aye.
Councilwoman Smith,
Aye.
Myself as I, the motion passes. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to item number 6, which is our other quarterly update. We hear from the police, as we already have, and we also love to hear from the fire department. And I believe Assistant Fire Chief Knighton will take us away here.
Good morning, Vice Mayor, members of council. Come here to give you kind of a quarterly update for the Asheville Fire Department for this first quarter. A lot of exciting things happening, and we look forward to share. So next slide, please. So just some key takeaways from my presentation. Again, our response numbers remain consistent, and we'll take a deeper dive into each one of these. We also continue to work toward meeting the fire chief's focus and strategic plan goals. As you know, when he came here, we kind of got together and he laid out some specific instructions, and we were able to get some input, but also kind of organize ourselves into the strategic plan and how to move that forward. So we'll take a deep dive into each of those. And also, we're going to highlight some significant progress and successes within our community responder, emergency management, and emergency medical response. Next slide, please. So response data for the first quarter. This is what we're looking at. Again, the majority of our calls for service are medical related. The other two, the good intent call and service call, as you know, many times our Asheville firefighters are asked to do things that don't quite fit into a scenario or don't quite fit into a description that might meet some kind of regulatory call type. And so those good intent calls and service calls, and just some examples of those would be, vicinity alarms. Someone hears an alarm, something's a third party caller where they've drove by, maybe seen something, not sure what's going on. Just our community alerting us that something doesn't quite look right, that may need assistance from the Asheville Fire Department. The other type of the service calls are the public assistance calls. Again, not quite sure what's going on. They just know that someone needs help and there's a problem there, and that they're looking for us to come up with a solution to handle that problem, whatever it might be. Again, unauthorized burning, that's one of the ones for the service call. Again, someone sees smoke, someone reports a fire within the city, and we're asked to respond and take care of that and help out with that problem solving. So this is kind of a snapshot of what we've had going on in the first quarter. Next slide, please. So you can see some of the concentration data. You got a heat map to the left, and then just kind of some of our responses and what that looks like. The core of our responses, again, are happening downtown. A lot of that's where the density is, but we are starting to see, and we have been seeing in the past, several years, that due to density increasing in our southern area, and you can see the red spot that's at the south, right next to the 4, our station 4. We're starting to see more and more increase for service out there. Again, lots of folks moving in, lots of density increasing. So again, that need for service is definitely increasing as well, as it would anywhere where that density is occurring. Next slide, please. So our response times, again, this is a huge focus for us. Our benchmark is 4 minutes for the first arriving unit 90% of the time. So that's when we get the call, we want to be on scene, solving the problem in 4 minutes for that first arriving unit. Many of our calls require more than 1 unit, but 90% of the time is our benchmark. And this is for only those emergency calls. That's where you see us using our lights and sirens and other devices to try to get there as quick and as safe as possible. So again, you look at this map, you see some of the red areas. That's that calculated 90th percentile travel time. So some of where we have to travel a great distance potentially, or in our jurisdiction, there are, mountains between parts of our city. So we have to go in and around, and we depend on our road network to assist us in getting places, but also sometimes due to traffic and other things, those hindrances are beyond our control. So this kind of shows you where we are with our response and some of the areas where we're looking to focus strategies moving forward as a part of those strategic goals and strategic outlook to maybe increase that service, but also increase the speed in which we're getting to some of these areas within our community. Next slide, please. So just some highlights, as I said in the key takeaways, some things we wanted to show and some significant progress. And I want to highlight this group here, the community responders. Our staffing has been consistently maintained. So we have our staffing is pretty much not a lot of movement within that. We're slowly beginning and have some subject matter expertise in this group. They've also completed the crisis intervention training, which is we're one of the first fire department teams. Our community responder group is one of the first fire department teams to complete this. Historically, it has been more of a law enforcement type class, and a big shout out to our partners at APD for getting us hooked up. And we had nothing but great things for the report from these three folks that went through that training and how we were able to work with it in real-time problem solving solutions to help us with those interactions that this group's having and all of our folks are having on a daily basis. So we're also, just to highlight, we're finalizing the hiring of that civilian peer support specialist, as we're going to augment this group to really help us, and that's that supervisor position. And then our next steps would be to hire those two remaining peer support folks to assist in that group to really just bring about more of that common operating picture, what's happening out there, continuing to, connect that resource to need and meet people where they are and hopefully help them restore service and solve problems. So big shout out to this group. They're continuing to do amazing things. And again, that crisis intervention, being one of the first fire departments to complete that's a big deal. I'm super proud of them. Next slide, please. So this is just kind of a snapshot dashboard of what that group's doing and some of our data points for this first quarter. You can see, again, the heat map showing where a lot of their activity is, but just to kind of highlight some stuff on this, the responsive events, those are events that someone's called and we've gone to assist. The follow-up events, again, where we're following through. And one of the successes to this program is that not only the proactive approach and also the response in nature, but that follow-up and that follow-through is super important. And then down at the bottom there where it says the resources restored, that's where we've tried to capture and provide data points in this area where we've actually been able to restore a service, really connect that resource to the need and where that need is. And again, just some highlights of this group's action. They're a super busy group. And again, staffing maintains, and we're able to again, as we embark on this journey, we said from before, as the manager said, it's a team effort. And a lot of this success we're seeing is because we're using that collaborative approach. We're connecting the resource to need, but we're also leveraging our teammates. And I think that's important too, as we approach this and create these problem-solving solutions to this ever-changing environment. Next slide, please. Oh, Ms. Campbell.
Jeremy, can you talk a little bit more about the proactive events? Because I think this is one of the areas where it distinguishes the city's efforts from the county's efforts in terms of community paramedics, just the proactive. We're out actively engaged in problem solving. I mean, I'll let you speak about it. You can speak more on than I can.
Sure. The approach of this group, again, is that one relationship at a time. So we're out there trying to meet people where they are, create those relationships, build trust, figure out what the needs are, and then we're able to take the needs, and these folks get real creative on how we connect that to service. And so those proactive events are where we've gone out and we've seen something occur. We've got reports, again, through those relationships, through that communication, maybe through communication from our teammates, like, hey, this is what's happening over here. Here's the problem. And so instead of waiting on that response or instead of waiting on that reaction from someone to elicit that response. We've been able to go out there proactively and maybe even handle a situation, follow up on a situation, inquire about a need potentially. So this is just that recognition part out in front of this. So we're keeping things, small. We're knowing a lot of that situational awareness that's happening out there. We're getting good information from folks on who needs help, what help could be, how we do that best. But again, I think it's the one of the most important things in that proactive piece is that one relationship at a time, building the trust, and then those familiar faces, that continuity of our staffing, the continuity of the staff, and they're developing, right? As we all have lots of training and lots of certifications. And this is one of the things that this group has specifically gone out, learned how to do maybe a different skill set, and then how are we directly applying that skill set? So I heard a lot of great feedback again from that crisis intervention training on that is going to continue to help this proactive approach. So I hope that answers the question, Ms. Campbell. I speak enough. Okay. So again, lots of success to report here. And again, we leverage those relationships and that teamwork, as Ms. Campbell said. Next slide, please. So emergency management, one of the things we've been able to do a lot. We're very thankful for, again, that team approach. This is not the emergency management piece of the city of Asheville is not just from the fire department. It's that collective approach again. And we've been successful because of support, participation, training, and really just people embracing this concept of collaborating at the very beginning when we think things could potentially take a turn, and we're keeping things small, right? We're keeping things small, and I think that's critical to this. But some successes, the elected officials guide is done. We have an emergency operations center manual. The picture in the screen is our emergency operations center. We're super thankful, very proud, and we're seeing a lot of use from this space. And again, that space is a place where we've definitely a kind of a petri dish for collaboration. Get folks in there, get them thinking creatively. We're communicating, and this is how we're sharing that information. We're starting again. We spent all last year rewriting the emergency operations plan and the continuity of operations plan. But as you know, as soon as it landed on the paper, it begins to get out of date. As things are funded, as people change, as our environment changes, the responses that we make change, and we are tasked with and that update cycle. And you've heard me speak before to the kind of the POETI model of that plan, organizing, equipping, training, and exercising. So again, we're in that planning phase now. We're beginning to that update cycle for this. So we'll be going around and not and repeating and asking some of the same folks from a lot of our teammates, department directors, and others that informed the plan the first time. We're going to go back and just touch on those things and make sure we're up to date. And again, the elected officials training is coming. We've had a lot of communication back and forth with that. So hopefully we've got holds on calendars, and we look forward to that. We think that's going to be exciting. We look forward to present that. Some successes. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention these things. One of the most recent ones is the Peach Knob water. It was a multi-departmental approach. We were notified that we had some issues with that tank with some pumps. And our water resources, they were very, very proactive and aggressive with using the tools that we had collaborated on earlier this year, the complexity analysis and things like that. And we were able to activate our emergency operations center in a posture that allowed for that collaborative thought, good communication, and we were able to get into that battle rhythm. And we depended heavily on those subject matter experts. And those subject matter experts in our water resources department were on the front lines figuring out those strategies, figuring out those tactics on how to mitigate that, what the next steps were, what that horizon planning looked like. Not just what's happening today, but what's going to happen tomorrow, and then in 2 days from now, 3 days from now. So because of that collaboration, because of using those tools, participating in that training, this was a super success on all parts. And we were able to safely mitigate that, without really any inconvenience, without any kind of service delivery or massive service delivery impact. So it was a huge success. So a big shout out to our water resources folks. They really worked hard. And today they are actually in an after action review based upon that. And so the continuous improvement piece starts today. So as soon as I get done here, I'm heading over there to talk with those folks and do some training together, as they're going to take what they've learned from this and update the plan and update their process again in that continuous improvement cycle. The other,
I'd like to jump in to echo. I do feel like how we handle emergencies, particularly on water, is just so in the focus for so many of us right now after what happened 2 winters ago. And I feel like having issues with our infrastructure is part of having infrastructure, whether you're the power utility, the gas utility, the water utility. And I was really impressed. I felt like I had a high level of information, like the appropriate level to understand from an elected official seat, so that if I was having correspondence with citizens, I understood what the problem was, what the solutions were, and the timeline to address it, and continuously got updates on that. And I felt like just really proud of the progress we've made, and really, really confident in our ability, based on all this excellent work for emergency management, to handle things a variety of scales. So please send the gratitude and thanks to everyone who's worked on that. I really think this is what our excellence does look like. And it's unfortunate that we had a really hard period on this, but I just am really full and proud.
absolutely.
And I'd like to echo that, Maggie, and also to commend Jeremy. It was unfortunate we were right in the process of launching the EOP and the COOP update at the time that we had the emergency 2 years ago. So this tool is invaluable. It really is. It's a call to action, and we need a little bit more training, and it will be continuous training. But I think we're doing we're doing better, and that's what matters: continuous improvement. And again, water resources for this specific issue was amazing. They worked some long hours as well. They worked long hours, and we really appreciate it. They didn't give up. They hung in there. Thanks.
Absolutely. I can't say enough about them and the participation even throughout this process to get to where we are. They were instrumental in us having the success with the tools, the input. We're only as good as the input we got, and these plans are only as good as the input we got. And all of our departments stepped up, especially water, and has really embraced this. And I'm super, super thankful. Another success we had in the end of last year, we had an IT-led cyber exercise, and we see that a lot, right? We're starting to see that even more and more. And so our IT department, super proactive, lots of subject matter expertise in there. We collaborated on, what would it look like for some type of cyber event involving our public safety radio system, and how prepared are we for our backup plans and what's that looks like, and the collaboration. So again, we met in the Emergency Operations Center as we would, practicing like we would do it. And we came together. We even invited outside partners, some of our more critical vendors. So really kind of embracing that, transparency, how we depend on the interdependencies in our IT infrastructure on a lot of different things and a lot of different people. Well, in true emergency management fashion, fast forward a couple of months, in the beginning of the year, we actually had an outage involving our radio system through an update. And because of this, we were super prepared. We had an after action review, as Water's doing today, on the things that we could highlight, how we could do it better. And we were able to actually put that in place it was about 8:00 at night when this happened. So we can't really predict when these are going to happen, but we were able to pivot very quickly because we had that muscle memory built in the exercise, in the training environment, to really operationalize that for real life. And again, practice and that muscle memory and that exercise. You know, we had a plan, we organized ourselves, we equipped ourselves with these tools, we trained on it, we exercised on it, and then it happens. And so 2 huge successes here in the first quarter. Again, super thankful for the collaborative effort, the teamwork, really moving us forward. And this is what success looks like. This is what continuous improvement and success looks like related to this. So I'm super thankful again. Next slide, please. Another one of the highlights and kind of something to look forward to in the future. One of the strategic initiatives that we're working on as a staff is our emergency medical service. I showed you in the very beginning slide, the EMS and the EMS call volume is the majority of what we're doing now. And so one of the goals that we've set forth is through the strategic initiatives by the fire chief is within 2 years, all of our Asheville Fire Department trucks will deliver that emergency medical care at the advanced EMT level. And that's just kind of an uptick from where in a certification we have about 50 of our staff members currently have this advanced EMT, and that allows our scope of practice and some of the procedures and things dealing with advanced life support that we're able to connect and perform those tasks and those skills to really intervene more aggressively the sicker the patients that we see. So again, some of the things to kind of look out for in this goal, within 2 years, having all of our trucks deliver this at that level. We're going to need, obviously, more training, equipping ourselves with these tools that go along with this, but also staffing and bringing that staff up to where we can further this and move this into the future. So we currently, through a restructure, we're doing some internal advertisement for some additional positions to assign some more internal folks to this, to really organize this again. And following that same POETI model, we're getting our plan together. We have a goal, and now we're going to equip ourselves and train ourselves to execute this. So this is kind of within the next 2 years, a really big focus of what we're doing. And that outcome, which, you know, through everything we do, we're striving for outcomes. And that outcome for this specifically is that greater level of care. It's reaching our visitors, our community, our residents in a much quicker way and in a more advanced skill set for our folks. So more to come on this, but we look forward to this, and we're embracing this as a department for this service delivery increase for sure. Next slide, please. Again, just some key takeaways. Again, the graphic just shows some of the strategic initiatives that we've organized ourselves to. Our numbers still stay the same. Lots of success in the first quarter, and we look forward to more and more collaborative efforts. And I look forward to spending some time with you all, walking you through some of the highlights in the process and that battle rhythm, and doing that training as we move forward. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Very thorough. Thank you. A thought for a future update could be about what and how collaborating with other departments. I don't want to add that in last minute to this agenda, but not even just other departments, but other agencies. Just like out in the community, there's some questions that are, why are we launching a community responder program? And I feel pretty clear on it being a massive value add, us having the resources and dedicating the money to that. I think it's a very good program, but I get really confused when I hear folks saying, oh, well, we should just be jumping in and participating in the county's program. To me, you don't want one agency delivering the only service, even if they had more resources. So I don't really understand kind of this argument I'm hearing in the community. So it'd be really nice to just detail out what collaboration is looking like, because we aren't in a silo or in a vacuum. We're working with the sheriff's department, the county's community paramedic. I know that collaboration is baked into the community responder program, but I feel like there's some misinformation out there around that right now. So it'd be nice to just hear a little bit more about that.
We'll be more than happy to provide an update on that.
Thanks.
And I'm glad he made that distinction early after you prompted him, but I think we need to continuously hear that. Early off in the conversation when we were talking about potentially shifting our services over to the county, I believe they were present with us and they told us that there is a distinction and it's a complementary service rather than the same thing. So I think if we continue to distinguish our approach and what we deliver and how we follow up as opposed to their response, I think we'll all be on the same page. So when we hear those arguments, we won't kind of wrestle in our minds with, are we doing the right thing? And if we should continue on.
Well, I tell you, I have not gotten as many positive and proactive responses from the community as I have with us talking about community responders. And quite frankly, even our firefighters, those that are engaged in this service, it's a very fulfilling kind of work for them. And I think they really feel as though they are providing a very needed service for this time, period of time in our community. Also, again, we are evolving the concept of public safety. And it is not just, I'm gonna wait for a call. It is, I'm gonna be proactive and I'm gonna go out and try to prevent a call. Because again, we are trying to be as impactful in terms of serving our community and residents who are, and anyone who is in need. And sometimes we gotta have firefighters that patrol and try to figure out, are there issues or concerns that need city services and other services that they can be connected to. Jeremy, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add in terms of making kind of that distinction. I don't want to belabor this, but.
Yeah, I think we, as we talked before, I think it's definitely complementary. And the other thing I think is important too is this continues to evolve and evolve rapidly. We're tackling things, we're embarking on things, we're finding ourselves in situations that and having to use different skill sets that we've never done before. And so again, that proactive approach allows us to do that. And I think the distinction is we complement in Western North Carolina, even we have many complementary systems that are already in play. And I think this is just one more of them. And I think as we continue to evolve this, I think it's going to be very, very clear how these are complementary. And we can definitely prepare some information to speak to that directly right now. But again, this is rapidly evolving. And again, as Ms. Campbell said, this is very fulfilling work. And the folks that are engaged in this on a day-to-day, there's success story after success story after success story. And many times it was really unexpected. And they're impacting other ways too, helping other departments, helping other even things in our own agency to move forward and giving that awareness of what we're doing and how we're doing it out there. So again, the future's bright. And I think a lot as we continue to evolve and as this continues to evolve, I believe it's going to be more like the other complementary services that we have.
And we're partnering our community responders, our firefighters, with two or three additional resources that will be peer support workers. So there's a lot of collaboration and sharing of skill sets and hopefully, again, most importantly, helping people and improving their lives and hopefully connecting them with, if needed, services.
And I love that part about it because that means that we actually heard the community when we were talking about reimagining public safety and incorporating some of our community professionals so that we can diversify our response. That's ideal. So I would definitely not want to pivot and do something different when we have so much momentum and involvement from citizens who want to help.
100% agree. The way I think about it a lot, no surprise here from the environmentalists, that it's like a diverse ecosystem. If you only have one plant type, if something bad happens, that plant goes down and you wipe out the whole ecosystem. And so for us, having the county and their functions, having the sheriff and their functions, having the homeless service providers, like this is a more dynamic, diverse ecosystem, which means we'll be more resilient to ups and downs of any of it. And so that's why I just keep being confused when I hear this misinformation in the community about we shouldn't be doing community responder program and instead we should be giving that money to the county. The law doesn't speak to the principles and values that council has been talking about with staff for quite some time. So in the event that I'm missing something, it'd be nice to hear a little more like how do we actually collaborate and just kind of paint that picture a little bit more, given the benefit of the doubt to the misinformers, to just hear a little bit more. Thank you so much. I'm doing a bunch of on the fly requests, and Deborah, we should have chatted ahead, but I'm inspired by what I'm hearing. So thanks. Okay, well, that is our 6th item on our agenda for today. And our final one is our closing public comment. Katie, do we have any closing public comment today?
One moment, I will check. I just reloaded and I did not see anybody in there, so no, we do not.
Okay. All right, well, with that, everyone can see on the agenda kind of things coming down the pipe for May. We're going to talk more about that civilian crash investigator program, which we chatted about a little today, and kind of where are we in the state's process for that. I'm excited. We're going to talk about stormwater. There's a lot that we need to do around stormwater, and we've been struggling to get it going for reasons that are understandable, but excited to kind of have a little bit of a microscope into what's going on there, as well as some really exciting stuff with our climate justice initiative, et cetera. So stay tuned for May, and everybody here who I'll see later, I'll see you sooner than you think. Thank you so much, everybody. Meeting adjourned.